This waterfall podcast is geared toward the new hunter, the couple season in hunter, and just the person that wants to learn a little bit more about education of being out in the outdoors and learning a little bit more basic stuff that you're going to need going forward to be a good hunter in the marsh. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about safety and what that means to you being the new hunter and a little bit more. So stay tuned for that. My plug today for a selfless plug for a business is going to be my buddy Lane from Wingman Waterfowl. If you have not checked him out on Instagram, he has the best ankle boots and boots in the industry, my opinion. And if you use FCW15 at checkout, you'll receive 15% off those boots. Give him a look, give him a follow, check him out. Good dude, great company, doing it all by himself. So, great business to represent and to be able to have comfort on your feet along the way. So with that said, we'll get into the podcast for today. The big topic that I'm going to discuss is safety. And what I mean by safety is I will start off by saying a little bit of an issue I had this season with safety. Being a seasoned hunter and being in the marsh and not having it be to the forefront of myself a couple times and a couple buddies quite a few times. Not to name names and not to throw stuff out there, but there was a couple incidents this year that made me do a deep dive look into who I hunt with, making sure that I come home to my wife at the end of a hunt. And I think that is a very important thing for people to understand when they get into hunting. You are playing a game where your goal is to kill something. And if you're not careful, that thing that kills something can be the reason why you don't go home. It can be a very simplistic thing that happens in the marsh. From a dog stepping on a trigger and you don't have your safety on, to laying a loaded gun in the boat when you thought you had it unloaded and you go to pick it up wrong and your finger hits that trigger. Every time you go in the marsh, you have to understand that if that booger hook hits that boom switch and it's pointed in the wrong direction, it can cost somebody their life. So obviously I don't want this podcast to be a dark and dreary thing, but I want people to understand, if you're a new hunter, trigger discipline. Your finger should never be on that trigger unless you're willing and able and want to shoot whatever is in front of that gun at that current time. Now, what that means for a new hunter, or for any hunter for that matter, your finger does not go in that trigger guard unless you are in go mode. You're ready to go, that gun's pointed in a safe direction. It should never be in the trigger guard on the trigger just as you're laughing and talking and having a good time with the boys. It's just not something that should happen. Where should your finger be when you have the gun in the ready position and your trigger finger is not on your trigger? Your trigger finger, your pointer finger, should be right up against the outside of that gun above the trigger guard, to where you should always have it. Hunting is muscle memory. So if you're putting your finger in your hand and how you shoulder your gun and all that kind of stuff the same every single time you go to draw your weapon, that muscle memory, when something comes in fast and you got to react quick, your body is naturally going to go right where it needs to get that gun in position. Your finger will be off that trigger the entire time when you're trying to get ready to make that shot. And your other finger, most likely, I use my middle finger to take my safety off, because my safety is behind the trigger guard on my gun, behind the trigger, I should say. I push the safety off with my middle finger. My other finger stays right where it needs to be until I'm ready to pull that trigger. Put my finger in the trigger guard, squeeze that trigger when I'm aiming at a bird, and then follow those birds up. The second that I'm done doing that, my trigger finger comes out of that trigger guard. I'm reloading, doing what I need to do, and making sure that I'm putting my safety back on before it goes in the boat. I have several stories of friends in high school, myself, different situations that I've been put in to where accidents happen. You fall over, you actually fall in the marsh and you land on your gun, or you fall in your boat. And not to say that I fall a lot, but when you're in a boat and everything's icy and cold, there's a lot of stuff to trip on. Whether you're walking into a walk-in spot and you're just kind of hanging out in the weeds, to you're in a John boat or you're in a kayak, things get slippery and wet and icy, and so there's so many different avenues where you can fall down with a gun. And I call it gracefully falling. You gotta, if you're gonna fall down in the marsh, you know you're gonna get wet, right? You're already standing in water up to your crotch. If you're gonna go in, that gun, typically for most people, you want to kind of salvage your gun and not have your gun get all soaked and down in the bottom of the marsh. You're going to put that gun above your head, which is most people's response. You start going under, you throw your hand up in the air, put that gun up in the air. But the trigger and the muzzle should always be in a safe direction when you're doing that. I know it seems very minuscule in the moment when you're falling in, but if you're panicking and you're getting wet, you're going to grab that gun wherever you see fit. And if that barrel is not pointed in a direction where it's not in the way of a friend, and it's in the wrong area where you're pointing it at your dog or you're pointing it at a family member that's in the weeds, and now you panic and you grip that gun, more than likely you're going to end up putting yourself in a situation where you could possibly have a hunting accident. So always keep that into consideration. So with that topic of safety, let's get back into the boat, and we'll go over a couple things that every hunter should know when waterfowl hunting with a group of people. Shooting your lanes. So what that means for a lot of people that wouldn't know or don't know that, if you're pointing yourself out directly at the marsh, similar to like you're sitting in a car, you're looking at a clock, and 10 to 2, just like you'd put your hands on a steering wheel, if you put your arms out in front of you while you're hunting with a group of people next to you on each side of you, your shooting lane is from 10 to 2. What that means is when you're swinging a gun, you only go to the 10 o'clock position out in front of you and the 2 o'clock position out in front of you to maintain safety when you're shooting in a group. Where this turns deadly for people is if you have new hunters and you have fast-paced action and birds are flying all over the place, it is very easy to not keep a level head and want to swing up over the top of you, swing side to side, and that kind of thing. If you're doing that, you're crossing barrels with people, and you're pointing across somebody's face to shoot at ducks or geese or whatever you're shooting at. The main thing you always need to take into consideration before shooting, whether you're by yourself or with a group, is if I turn and swing to this side or that side, left or right, doesn't matter, 10 to 2 needs to be in your head. Now, if you're shooting straight up above you, yes, you're still within that 10 to 2 mindset. Take that angle that 10 to 2 makes and keep that all the way up above you or behind the blind, for that matter, if you're still shooting at ducks behind you. You should never be shooting past 10 and 2. It's just opening yourself up to put yourself in a bad situation. Hunting in a group can be very fast-paced. For a new hunter, you need to learn that when everything is happening at once and everything is getting wild, and you guys are excited, right? You just shot 10 geese in a group, or you shot a bunch of ducks that came into your decoys, and now that the dog is flying out there to go get some ducks, you have to still have that mindset of my safety's on, my gun's pointed in a safe direction, and I know that as I'm celebrating and clapping hands and fist bumping and having a celebratory, yeah, that was awesome, that my gun is always pointed in the right direction and is not loaded and has a safety off. Has to be number one all the time. I was put in a situation this last year where 10 to 2 wasn't followed, and in my opinion, it almost cost me my life. We decided to have a widgeon come in at a weird angle, and we decided that the bird was more important than the person next to me. Not saying I was the one that shot, but I'm also not saying who was the person that shot. It rattled me a little bit because it was one of those things that you feel that your buddies have your back all the time. And in that moment, the next thing that came out of that person's mouth was, well, I didn't want the bird to get away. In that moment of fast pace, birds coming in at weird angles, safety went out the window. And the only thing that was important was going home with a bird to somebody. And that simply just cannot be. It's a good way to lose a friend permanently, or it's a good way to lose a hunting buddy during the hunting season, because that shakes people a little bit when you get your ears rung right next to your head. So that's something that everybody has to take into consideration. This podcast isn't meant to scare people. It's meant to educate, so that when you're in those moments in the field and you're going to do something like that, that you second guess yourself, or that you don't second guess yourself, and you make the decision to take and pull up that shotgun instead of take that shot that you shouldn't have, or you shouldn't, in any setting whatsoever. So let's get back to the rules of hunter safety. In hunter safety in Wisconsin and in a lot of other areas, they go by the philosophy of Tab K. And if you're a new hunter that hasn't taken hunter safety, obviously hunter safety in the state of Wisconsin is something that you have to maintain and have and pass as a certification to be able to be licensed as a hunter in the state of Wisconsin. I know a lot of states have very similar laws, different programs, but they all teach the same. Number 1, treating every gun as if it were loaded. If you're giving a gun to somebody's handing a gun to you, that action should always be open and verify that that gun's empty. It's your responsibility to know that that gun is empty. So if anybody ever hands you a gun that is 100% locked and loaded and looks like it's ready to go, you treat every single gun as if it's ready to kill something. And you treat it accordingly. You open the action, you verify that it's empty, that there's nothing in the magazine or nothing in the magazine tube on a shotgun in that respect. That is the number one thing that every person has to do with a gun. Treat every gun as if it were loaded 100% of the time. If you treat an empty firearm like it's ready to kill something, you'll never wave that gun in front of somebody's face. You'll never put the barrel in front of their face or point it at something that you should have never pointed at if you were ready to kill it, unless you're ready to actually end that thing's life. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. We've already discussed that a little bit, so I won't touch on that in great detail, but unless you are ready to kill whatever is in front of the gun, the finger should never be on the trigger until it's go time. Period. End of story. Be sure of your target and what's beyond. So people get in the heat of the moment, fast and furious pace, and you're shooting at ducks, geese, deer, turkeys. Always have to be diligent to know what is behind the area that you're shooting at. With a shotgun, it's mostly pellets in the air. They're going to trickle down, and sure, they might, I've been sprayed with pellets in the water before. Just kind of comes down like steel rain. But if you're hunting close to a trail, and people walk those trails, and you're shooting at ducks that are flying low on the water, are you going to spray some walker or biker or some young family with their kids with those pellets? If so, if you know there's a trail there, wait and set your decoys up on a different angle so that you're not shooting that way. Always strategically set yourself up so that you're always pointing in a safe direction and knowing what's behind those cattails or what's on the other side of that tree, the tree line. With deer hunting, it's even more important. Obviously, you're shooting deer with a high-powered rifle. So in that retrospect, a bullet, by the time you drop a penny from your waist or chest area, let's say, if you pull the trigger the same time you drop a penny from your chest height, that bullet's traveled a mile. You got to know where that bullet's going. If you're never shooting at a deer up a hill, unless you know what's on the other side of it. If it's a whole bunch of nothingness, that's a difficult call to make. I probably wouldn't shoot at a deer standing on top of a hill. I don't know what's on the other side. Always knowing what's behind your target. And for duck hunters, one of the things that you want to make sure is not behind your target, especially for your buddies shooting at things or yourself, your decoys. If you're shooting at ducks right over the decoys, be diligent on where your mojos are, where your spinners are, where all your really expensive duck decoys and stuff are as well. Because the more you shoot those, the less they float. Same thing goes with dogs when duck hunting. If you have a dog that breaks and jumps in the water to go get ducks right after your group shot, water swatting shouldn't be an issue to finish off ducks. You shouldn't be doing it. Nobody should shoot over a dog. Personal opinion, I just think it's a very safe practice to never shoot over somebody's dog, even if it's your own. So, keeping your muzzle in a safe direction always. My story with that would be, I had a friend in high school that he was hunting with his uncle, and they were going to go push out of the marsh to go back and go home for the day. He set his shotgun in the front of the boat, front of the canoe. Uncle went to push the boat out. Muzzle was right in the uncle's face. The dog was jumping around the boat all crazy because they were excited to get back or whatever the case may be. And some safety protocols weren't followed about where that muzzle was and loaded guns and all the other stuff. Long story short, the uncle's no longer here because he got shot by that gun when the dog stepped on the trigger of a loaded gun when the muzzle was pointed at his face. Always know where your muzzle is, period. End of story. There's no reason not to. It just has to be that way. So, hunting is very fast-paced when it comes to duck hunting. The reason I harp on safety a lot to young kids, friends, co-workers, whoever I'm talking to, without safety, you really have nothing in the marsh because it takes a half second to change somebody's life forever. And you need to understand that as a new hunter. You need to understand that as a 75-year-old hunter. As hunters, we get too relaxed with safety to where we become unsafe ourselves because we allow safety not to be in the forefront of everything we do. The more experiences you go through and the more different angles you have ducks come in at your decoys, and you have teal coming in mock Jesus, or you have slow moving geese coming in to land in your decoys, or whatever that would be. Each opportunity presents you a different look and a different excitement level. And you need to be able to control yourself in those moments to be able to capitalize on it. But most importantly, look left and look right and kind of know where your friends are so that you don't have one of those incidents happen. So, I know that's kind of a tough topic for a lot of people. Everybody has a story of somebody they know that's either been hurt by a hunting accident or killed in a hunting accident. And that's unfortunate because the fun sometimes gets in the way of the safety mindset to be able to have that, to be able to have those experiences in the marsh with your friends in a safe manner. So, even if you're hooting and hollering and having a good time, always maintain safety 100%. That's going to wrap it up for today, guys. I appreciate you guys listening. Give a shout out to Wingman Waterfowl again. Go check his boots out online. Great stuff, great gentleman. Louisiana boy. You won't be disappointed in that respect either. So until next time, guys, take care. Be safe out there. Have a good rest of your day.